My name is Daniel Carter. I'm 29 years old, and I work as a financial consultant in Chicago. To most people, my life looks ordinary, even enviable. I've got a good job, a respectable salary, and a wife who, on paper, should be enough for me. Her name is Emily. She's smart, caring, and has stood by me through rough patches I wouldn't wish on anyone. We've been married for 4 years, and if you saw us from the outside, you'd probably think we were happy. But this is the story I've never told anyone. I call it, she said, I know your secret, then touched my hand in front of my wife. It started at the office. A Tuesday morning, gray skies, the kind of day where the coffee doesn't quite wake you up. I was sitting in the glass conference room, flipping through a presentation I'd spent all weekend preparing. That's when she walked in, Meline. She was new, hired from one of our rival firms. Tall, sharp green eyes, the kind that don't just look at you but through you. There was a confidence about her, a certain elegance in the way she carried herself that instantly commanded the room. She introduced herself with a quick smile, one that lingered an extra second when our eyes met. I remember thinking, just don't. You're married. You've got everything you need. But the truth? Some part of me felt alive in that moment, like something dormant had been jolted awake. The weeks passed, and Meline and I were assigned to the same account. Long nights in the office, coffee-fueled strategy sessions, shared silences that felt heavier than words. It wasn't physical at first. It was subtler than that. Inside jokes whispered during meetings, her leaning closer than necessary when pointing at a spreadsheet, the faint trace of her perfume that lingered in my jacket after she brushed past me. I told myself it was nothing, harmless, until the company dinner. That night, Emily came with me. She rarely did. She wasn't a fan of these corporate events, but I'd asked her to come. Maybe, deep down, I needed her there as a barrier. The restaurant was dimly lit, candles flickering on every table. Colleagues laughed, glasses clinked, and somewhere in the background a piano played. Emily looked beautiful that night, in a dark blue dress that brought out her eyes. I wanted to focus on her, to remind myself of the life we'd built. But then Meline walked in. Every head turned. She was wearing a black dress, simple yet devastating, and when her gaze locked with mine across the room, it felt like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. We ended up at the same table. Emily sat to my right, Meline across from me. The conversation flowed easily enough, projects, clients, travel plans. But under the table, I could feel Medeline's eyes flicking to me, sharp, deliberate. And then it happened. Halfway through the meal, as laughter bubbled around us, Meline leaned forward slightly, her voice low enough for only me to hear. I know your secret. The words sliced through me. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Before I could react, she reached across the table. It was casual, subtle. She brushed her hand against mine as if moving a glass. But the touch lingered, soft, deliberate. Emily was right there, my wife, sitting inches away. My chest tightened, my pulse hammering in my ears. Did Emily notice? Did anyone? I pulled my hand back, forcing a strained smile. Excuse me? I muttered, standing too quickly and nearly knocking over my chair. In the restroom, I gripped the sink, staring at my reflection. What the hell are you doing, Daniel? I whispered to myself, but her words wouldn't leave me. I know your secret. The rest of the night blurred. I kept my distance from Meline, but every time I glanced her way, she was already watching me. That same unreadable expression on her face. On the ride home, Emily rested her head on my shoulder. You okay? You seemed tense. I kissed the top of her head. Just tired. Long week. But inside, I was unraveling. The next morning, she cornered me at the office. Relax, Meline said with a sly smile. I'm not going to say anything. I tried to play dumb. About what? She tilted her head, her eyes gleaming. Come on, Daniel. You think I don't notice? The way you look at me when you think no one's watching. The way your voice changes when you talk to me. My throat went dry. You're imagining things. But she leaned in, close enough that her breath warmed my ear. No, I'm not. And neither are you. That was the beginning of the unraveling. Every interaction with her after that felt dangerous. A ticking bomb, one I couldn't seem to walk away from. At home, Emily sensed something was off. She'd ask me if I was stressed, if work was too much, if I needed time away. I'd reassure her, smile, hold her, tell her everything was fine. But it wasn't, because every day Meline pushed a little further. A touch on my arm, a whispered joke that bordered on intimate, a text late at night, always professional on the surface, but loaded underneath. And every day I told myself I could handle it, that I was still in control, until the night she called me. Her voice was quiet, urgent. "Daniel, I need to see you. Tonight." I hesitated. My wife was in the next room, reading on the couch. The safe, steady life I had built was right there, within reach. But so was she, and I picked up my keys. When I drove to her apartment that night, the city felt different. Streets I'd driven 1,000 times seemed sharper, louder, alive with a kind of electricity I couldn't ignore. My hands gripped the steering wheel, slick with sweat, my chest pounding like I was headed somewhere I wasn't supposed to be. Meline lived in a high-rise overlooking the lake. I still remember standing at her door, my finger hovering over the buzzer, every cell in my body screaming, "Turn back." But I didn't. She opened the door barefoot, her hair tied up, wearing nothing but a loose white shirt that looked stolen from some man's closet. Maybe it was her way of reminding me that once I stepped in, I was crossing a line I could never uncross. "Daniel," she whispered, like she'd been waiting for this moment all her life. I didn't kiss her. Not then. We just stood there, silence stretching between us, the city lights flickering through her windows. But in that silence, something inside me snapped. We talked, or at least we told ourselves that's what we were doing. About work, about stress, about how lonely success can feel. She told me she'd been divorced for 2 years, that she never wanted to get married again, that men only ever disappointed her. And then, after a pause, she said it. "You're not happy with her, are you?" I swallowed hard. "That's not true. She's everything." Meline studied me with those piercing green eyes, as if peeling back the layers I'd carefully built. "If she was everything, you wouldn't be here right now." Her words hit me like a blade. And before I could form a reply, she leaned in, her hand brushing mine, just like she had at the dinner. This time, I didn't pull away. The next hours blurred. I wish I could say I stopped myself, that I left before anything happened. But that would be a lie. And when I finally stumbled back into my house in the early morning hours, Emily was asleep on the couch, a blanket half draped over her, the book she'd been reading resting on her chest. I stood there, looking at her, guilt burning through me like acid. I told myself it was a mistake, a one-time thing, but mistakes have a way of multiplying. The weeks that followed were a nightmare of contradictions. At work, Meline and I danced around each other, pretending nothing had changed, except everything had. Secret glances during meetings, stolen moments in empty hallways, texts that started professional but bled into the personal. At home, Emily noticed. She had to. The way I avoided her eyes at dinner, the way I worked later, the way my phone was suddenly never far from my pocket. She didn't accuse me, not yet, but silence can be heavier than words. One night, as I crawled into bed, she whispered into the darkness, "Daniel, do you still love me?" I froze. My back was to her. I could feel her hand reaching for mine, trembling. "Of course I do," I said quickly, too quickly. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew she heard the hesitation. Then came the breaking point. We were in the middle of a quarterly review meeting. The entire team was there, including my boss, clients, senior partners, everyone. Emily had dropped by the office earlier that day to bring me lunch. Sweet, innocent, unannounced. She was leaving the lobby just as Meline and I stepped out of the elevator together. Meline didn't miss a beat. She smiled at Emily, introduced herself warmly, and then, "God help me." She slid her hand onto my arm. "Daniel's been such a lifesaver on this project," she said smoothly, her touch lingering. "I don't know what I would have done without him." Emily's eyes flickered, just for a second, but I saw it. The doubt, the the suspicion, the quiet devastation she tried to hide behind a smile. And in that moment, I realized something chilling. Meline wanted her to know. That night, Emily barely spoke to me. She moved around the house in silence, setting the table, cleaning dishes, avoiding my eyes. Finally, she said, "Do you like her?" My heart stopped. "What? No, she's just a colleague." But Emily's lips pressed into a thin line. "Sometimes," she whispered, "I feel like I don't know you anymore." I wanted to tell her everything, to fall at her feet and confess, to beg for forgiveness before it was too late. But then my phone buzzed. A message from Meline. "Dinner tomorrow? Don't make me wait." And I made the worst choice of my life. Meline and I spiraled deeper. What had started as attraction twisted into something darker. Obsession, manipulation, a game of control. She knew exactly how to pull me in, how to play with my guilt and desire until I couldn't tell the difference between love and self-destruction. But the more time I spent with her, the more I saw the cracks. The temper that flashed when I didn't answer her texts right away. The subtle digs at Emily, planted like seeds she wanted to grow. One night, after I told her I couldn't see her, Emily had planned a weekend getaway. Meline showed up outside my house. She stood across the street, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the window where Emily and I sat, and she smiled. That's when I realized this wasn't just an affair, it was a trap, and I had walked straight into it. I didn't sleep that night. Even after Emily drifted off beside me, her breath slow and steady, I lay there with my eyes open, heart pounding in my throat. I kept replaying the image of Meline standing across the street, arms folded, face calm, eyes fixed on my home like she was studying a painting she planned to destroy. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was tired, paranoid. But deep down, I knew better. The next morning, she sent a text. "You looked peaceful last night. She's beautiful, almost too good for you." That wasn't flirtation anymore. That was a threat. I tried to ignore her. I deleted the message. I didn't reply, but Meline was relentless. She started appearing in places she didn't belong. A coffee shop I frequented with Emily, a grocery store across town, even the park where I sometimes went for runs. Always coincidentally, always with that same unnerving calm. At work, things got worse. She'd slip notes into my folder, little phrases written in neat cursive. "She doesn't know you the way I do. We're already too deep to turn back. You belong to me." I started to lose focus. My numbers at work slipped. My boss pulled me aside, concerned. "Daniel, you okay? You've been off lately." And then Emily's older brother, Nate, showed up at our house. Nate and I were never close. He'd always been protective of Emily, suspicious of me in that classic big brother way. But now, he sat across from me at our kitchen table, his voice low and sharp. "She called me," he said. I blinked. "Who?" He stared at me. "Meline." My stomach dropped. "She said you were involved, that you'd been seeing her, that Emily deserved to know." Couldn't breathe. "She what?" She didn't give details, but she gave enough. Enough for me to drive here and ask you one thing. He leaned forward. "Is it true?" Emily was upstairs, shower running. The sound of water was the only thing keeping me from completely falling apart. I lowered my eyes. "Nate, His jaw tightened. "You son of a..." I stood up. "Don't. Not here. Not in front of her. She's my sister," he snapped. "Do you have any idea what this would do to her? To us? Our family?" And in that moment, I realized the full weight of what I'd done. It wasn't just about Emily. It was about everything. Our families, our friends, our reputations, the life we'd built. And I had let someone like Meline into the center of it. I called Meline that night. She answered on the first ring. "Took you long enough. What the hell are you doing?" I said, my voice shaking. "Protecting us," she said sweetly. "You were going to leave her, remember? We talked about this." "I never said that." "You implied it," she said, her voice now cold. "Every time you touched me, every time you told me she didn't understand you, Every time you stayed a little longer in my bed. This isn't love, I said. This is manipulation. She laughed. No, Daniel, this is the truth. And the truth always comes out. Then she whispered, if you won't leave her, maybe I will. Click. I didn't tell Emily about the call. I didn't tell her about Nate. I told myself I was protecting her, but really, I was protecting myself. My image, my carefully crafted lie. But secrets rot in silence. And a week later, the truth came knocking. Literally. Emily was at work. I was home early, nursing a migraine, when the doorbell rang. I opened it, and there she was, Meline, standing on my porch, in daylight, in a floral dress, holding a letter. Don't worry, she said softly. I'm not here to scream or cause a scene. I stared at her. You need to leave. I just wanted to give you this. She handed me the letter. Her eyes glistened, but there was no softness in them anymore, only control. I wrote down everything, she said. All of it. The truth. If you ever try to make me disappear, I'll send it to your wife. Your boss. Your mother. I clenched my fists. You're blackmailing me now? She smiled, gently, like a teacher correcting a child. No, I'm reminding you. You and I, we made choices. And choices have consequences. And then she leaned in, close enough for her lips to graze my ear. Tell Emily I said hello. She walked away. When Emily came home, she found me sitting on the couch, the letter still in my hands, my face pale. She looked at me, confused. Daniel? What's going on? And in that moment I broke. I told her everything. The affair, the texts, the obsession, the threats, every shameful, gut-wrenching detail. She didn't cry, not at first. She just sat there, expressionless, like someone trying to process a death in slow motion. Then she stood up, walked to the bedroom, closed the door, and didn't speak to me for 2 days. The fallout was worse than I imagined. Emily moved in with her parents for a while. Nate refused to speak to me. My boss caught wind of personal drama at work and put me on unpaid leave. And Meline, she left the firm. No one knew where she went. It was like she dropped a grenade into my life and vanished in the smoke. I spent weeks alone in that house, sitting with my guilt, my shame, my reflection. And for the first time in years, I truly looked at myself, who I had become, what I had done, and why. It took months for Emily and I to speak again. Real conversations, not logistics, not shallow updates. We met at a coffee shop one rainy afternoon. She sat across from me, hair damp, eyes soft but cautious. I'm not ready to forgive you, she said, but I'm ready to understand. And I cried, because even after all I'd done, she still had the grace to try. The hardest thing about betrayal isn't the guilt. It's the silence that follows. The long stretches of days when the person you hurt most can't even look at you. When the absence of their voice echoes louder than any argument ever could. That's what life became after Emily left. Silence. And yet, silence has a way of teaching you things words never could. It was 2 months before Meline resurfaced. I was walking back from a grocery store when I saw her, leaning against her car, parked across the street from my house. Same calm expression, same unnerving confidence. What do you want? I asked, exhaustion heavy in my voice. She smiled faintly. To see you. You've done enough damage. Her eyes flickered, for the first time showing something I hadn't seen before. Vulnerability. You think I'm the villain, don't you? I almost laughed. You burned my marriage to the ground. What do you think I should call you? She stepped closer, her voice dropping. I didn't make you cheat, Daniel. You did that. All I did was give you what you were already looking for. Her words cut deep because part of me knew they were true. We stood in silence, rain beginning to drizzle around us. She finally slipped a folded envelope into my hand. This is everything. The texts, the emails, the photos. I deleted the rest. I don't want to destroy you. I just wanted to be remembered. And with that, she walked away. No threats, no final twist, just a strange, bittersweet end. I never saw her again. Months turned into a year. Emily and I met for coffee, for dinners, for long walks where we spoke cautiously, like two people trying to learn each other all over again. Trust isn't a light switch. It doesn't come back just because you want it to. It's built brick by brick in small, fragile ways. One night, after a long walk along the river, she stopped and looked at me. "Do you even know why you did it?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. I stared at the water, the city lights reflecting in ripples. Finally, I said, "Because I forgot who I was. Because I let someone else's attention make me feel seen, instead of facing the parts of myself I was too afraid to fix. And because I was weak." She studied me for a long moment. Then she whispered, "At least you know, we didn't go back to what we were. Not completely. Some wounds never heal the same way. But in time, we learned a new rhythm. Slower, wiser, more honest." I promised her I would never hide from her again. And I promised myself something even more important. Never again to confuse attention with love, desire with truth, or obsession with intimacy. Looking back now, I realized something I couldn't then. Meline wasn't just a person. She was a mirror. She reflected back the cracks in me I didn't want to see. The insecurities, the hunger for validation, the parts of myself I'd been hiding even from Emily. And if I learned anything from that storm, it's this. Love isn't tested in grand gestures. It's tested in the quiet moments, when no one's watching, when temptation whispers, when the easy choice is to lie and the harder choice is to stay. I failed that test once, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying to pass it.